We have a real problem with Gen Z. We are breeding soft people, soft children that are turning into young adults.
It's because people were looking to protect children. Some of the things you can do is encourage your kid to play sports, because sports, there are a lot of great lessons in. Encourage your kid to play a musical instrument, because that's also, it takes discipline to achieve, takes time, takes patience, and teaching the kid.
And don't quit. All right, you guys, we have a very special solo episode today. I am joined with one of my very dear friends, Lee Trink, who is, I would say definitely not a shrinking violet. So he'll make a wonderful foil for this episode.
Can I just ask, how is it a solo episode if I'm sitting here? Like, it's already not solo.
We call it solo episodes because it's more of like I pick a topic that I think is interesting to talk about, or just kind of like to delve deeper into.
And I'm a piece of furniture.
Yeah, you're like my foil. That's why we call it a solo. But you're right. At this point, we should probably just call it like a duo episode, because you are technically a person as well sitting here.
I would think so.
And you're on camera.
What do I know?
Well, let me tell you just a little backstory. So the reason why we called it solos was I used to do them with Shawnee, who used to work with me, who I adore, but Shawnee got a very meaningful job with Jews Talk Justice. So she hasn't been available. So I haven't really been doing solos. I've been doing more like Fitness Fridays. And now I'm just kind of going back to like doing some solos, and we're going to kind of go back and forth, right? And how we used to do it was she was not on camera because we didn't have access to have all these cameras. So she would kind of sit on the other side. But now we have more cameras, hence you'll be visually, you'll be seen to the public. I also want to tell everybody that if you have not yet subscribed, please subscribe. I should have said that at the beginning. Always give us comments. If you like Lee, hate Lee, think he is
join the club.
You could just kind of
add yourself to the list.
He is he has a lot of opinions, and I thought he'd be a wonderful addition to these solo/duo episodes. So anyway, thanks for coming.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So today's topic, what we're going to delve into, is something that me and you talk about a lot. So I thought this would be a good place to start. Is I really wanted to talk about Gen Z. And the reason why is I'm under the impression, and my belief is that I believe that we have a real problem with Gen Z. I think that we as a society have been, we are building soft people. Like this generation and the generation to come are becoming more soft and more soft. And I just saw a recent study, or I've spoken about this before, on a recent study, which was that 800 people who were interviewed for a job, 20% of these people, of like these are like business managers, were saying that 20% of the people that they were interviewing wanted to take their moms or dads to the interview, that they would not.
Hilarious.
Yeah, they would not go alone.
I mean, I've heard the statistic, and I think what's amusing also is like that sounds humiliating. Like I couldn't even think of something more astonishingly humiliating. Not only the ask for it, but having my mom sit there like, Lord knows what she's going to say.
Well, no, but like that's our generation. Like I would never even think in a million, like we used to be afraid, or not afraid, we'd be embarrassed to take our parents places. But like, I think that's more when you're younger. I think as you get older, you're not as embarrassed. You're more, but I will say that what's happened in not just the workforce, but in general, that we are breeding soft people, soft children that are turning into young adults, that are turning into adults, that they're unable to have the coping skills, the ability to adapt to the environment that they're in. Because what's happened is we are creating these, we are kind of creating the environment where our kids should be in versus allowing our kids to adapt to the environment outside. We're doing the opposite. And we are indulging them in these triggers and these, feeling every emotion. And I think the pendulum now has swung so far that people have become really soft and they are not able to even adapt and like live in like today's time.
Look, I think part of it, look, I would say I am actually a very big proponent of Gen Z. I ran a company, built a company that was a Gen Z company. Was not only was our audience Gen Z, our talent with Gen Z, our employees
Right.
were
It's
mostly
called FaZe
Gen Z,
Clan.
FaZe Clan.
Yeah.
And I think we've failed that generation in many ways. And then they have some of the idiosyncrasies that they've created themselves, or that maybe a product of that, maybe a different point of view. But so number one, despite maybe some of the things I'll say negatively about them, I'm actually a big proponent of Gen Z, and I think it's important to understand them in the context of how they grew up. And I think what you're talking about is it. If you're a generation that grew up with participation trophies as the norm and weren't taught resilience, we're so protected by helicopter parents, by again, sports. Sports is something that teaches people discipline, excellence, stick-to-itiveness. It teaches you so many things. And as soon as you give people participation trophies as a thing, you've now kind of undermined all of those lessons that kids are able to learn.
You're taking away the, you're not congratulating people on their effort anymore. You're basically just saying because you showed up, period, you win. And yeah, it's great to show up, and we always talk about showing up as half the battle. But then, where is the effort to take it to? Like, not everyone could be a winner. You have to have winners, and you have to have losers. Now, what I'm curious about, like, where did the pendulum swing so far? At what point did things end up becoming so different than how our generation was?
Well, I think it's because people were looking to protect children, right? You're trying to protect feelings, or you're
But
potentially.
why? Where did that come from?
I think it's this, and it's partially indulgence. It's, and I think this is look, not to not to get sidetracked, but I think it's part of a problem of like the entire society, where we look at almost the weakest or the slowest of the pack. I mean, think about it from the term of Darwinism. What we've started to do is we've started to say, hey, the kids in the back, why doesn't everybody in the front slow down so the kids in the back don't feel so bad? And at that moment, if you look at just that moment in time, what a wonderful thing you've done to preserve the feelings of the kid in the back, right? So if you look at it just on that lens,
I get
but
it.
if you pull back, now what have you taught the rest of the kids? What have you removed as a lesson for these kids? So I think the thing that drove the ideology behind it was maybe something benevolent, but it really created, I think it had unintended consequences or just ignored consequences that, I mean, frankly, I think knowing the way we grew up, duh, right? Like,
I know that's my point. If the way we grew up, but I'm saying like, let's say, like remove us or our generation, let's say, from today, right? Like, do you think this is you worked with so many of these guys at FaZe Clan? That is the Generation Z. And do they feel like, do they even know how it used to be, in the sense that they have become soft, or they don't even know any different, right? Because that's all they really know. And what bothers me is that when people are excellent, we are made to, not we as me, but I'm saying they are made to feel bad or less than, because they're now making people who are worse than feel bad about themselves. That's what you're saying. Like, the people in the front should now slow down to make the people in the back feel better.
Yeah. Now, the reality is, if you look at the environment of FaZe Clan, like from the talent side, these are all people that excel, right? These were
Right.
so they're almost the exception to the rule, or to the commonality, because just by helping, building that brand, creating the energy behind it, that's excellence that did that, right? Like that was different than the pack. So I think that a lot of them would look at it and kind of have a similar reaction of understanding it, right? But what we're talking about is what's happened to the masses. Why are people being kind of left behind, or why are people lagging? And so, yes, there are lessons, and I have had experience in working with that generation. But I happen to have worked with the people who excelled, and the people that kind of were at the front of the pack and stayed at the front of the pack. And frankly, again, I'll go back to sports. I think sports is, I think back to the things that I learned playing high school football. It taught me a lot of things. Maybe not even in the nicest way, right? Coaches are tough, but those lessons are really important, and they're transferable. And when you eliminate those from kids, when you try and create so much safety, then you kind of screw up somebody's trajectory. Like that safety is a bubble that they grew up in, and a bubble that they will need to live under. And why that bubble is, can my mommy come to this interview, because I need that bubble. I need the tether.
And to that, just for the sport, the sports analogy to me is really important, because sports to me always has been a place where people have learned, or do learn, team building, discipline, patience. Like, you need to work hard to become really good at something. Practice.
Investing in yourself, right? Like, you have to practice a lot before you get to that game.
And what's happening now are all of these, like, we're actually bubble wrapping the kids before they go. Or when a coach is not nice or screaming, parents are calling the coach and berating the coach, and
it never dawned on me to tell my parents how mean my coach was. I mean, this is, maybe this gets cut out. I remember one of the coaches, his move was he would literally take somebody's helmet and kind of kick them in the chin to, like, I think it was like a shock and awe campaign. And listen, maybe that's extreme, and maybe that should be frowned upon.
Really crazy
but
shit.
Like, our coaches were brutal, but guess what? The
it
kids
worked.
like, we're better for it,
Oh, I mean, listen, I always say that, like, if I think we're trying to eliminate the obstacle of failure, but yet it's failure that makes you successful.
100%. And it's because it is the act of picking yourself back up.
Of course.
And doing that repeatedly, right? Like, that's not a one-time thing. Like, look, we live in a world where people get kicked down all the time. And if you don't have the coping mechanism to deal with that, well, you could disintegrate from it.
And so this is where we come back to this whole thing of...
But there's also, to me, like, an exacerbating factor, which is the internet, social media, the speed in which and the world at your fingertips also teaches a lesson that compounds the problem, which is everything is moving at light speed. I want it now. I want it yesterday. I have it. I want to watch it. I have it. I want the information. I have it. Whatever it is, I don't have to invest in it.
How is that building soft?
Because
people.
Because if you think about the first part, it takes, and you just said it, right? Patience, discipline.
Right. There's no delayed gratification.
That's right. So you don't invest in, there's no kind of routine of investing in something to get to the place.
So this is the thing. I think delayed gratification is a whole podcast on its own. I think that is what's happened with social media. We can even do a whole other solo duo on that later, because I think that's a big one. But I do believe that eliminating the ability to feel pain or hurt or discomfort.
It's naive. It's nice, but naive.
I just think it's an unrealistic for life. I think that what happened, this is what I wanted to say, that I think that sports used to be a microcosm for the rest of the world and life. And that's what was really good for children to be in these team sports. But what's happened is they've actually made it so it's actually not a microcosm. It's the opposite. They've bubble wrapped these people. They've created their own reality, thinking that that's how life is. Like your mom's always going to call, your mommy's going to call the coach. Your mom is going to, if you don't like something, you can quit. That's the other thing. How many people have I seen on these sports teams that my kids are on that they don't like something because someone looked at them wrong, or they didn't like the coach, or they lost, or something happened, and they just quit and they never showed up again. And the parent allowed for this. Like, never in my house would I allow my child to quit a sports team or anything for that matter because they just didn't feel like
They had a
it
bad
anymore.
day,
They
right?
didn't
Or a
like it
bad
anymore.
moment, right?
Like if you start something, you finish it, you follow through, follow through, follow through. There's been a million different research studies basically saying that the best way to build confidence is through self-efficacy and through competence. The only way to get competent is to do something even when you don't want
Invest
to.
the time.
That's how that works. So let's just wrap this up because they're supposed to be short episodes, and God knows, I have no idea how long that was, but I want to say that I want to hear feedback from people who are listening. What do you feel? Do you think we're building a society with soft people, soft kids that are now turning into adults? What is your take? Do you think that you still need to have grit? That's how you build grit. You need to like build grit and resilience by allowing kids to fail, by making the kid not quit because they don't like it anymore. And well, just overall, what is your feeling? Do you feel that we are building a soft nation? That's my question. And my, me and my cohort here, I think, feel that we are. Yeah.
I mean, I definitely think we are. Look, when you start to hear that a certain amount of people want to bring their parents to an interview, that has to like stop you in your tracks and say, what are we doing wrong? Like, there's a lot of these things of like, what are we doing wrong? And start to look for root causes. And look, life's a balance, right? Like creating resiliency is there's not an endless amount of pain somebody can tolerate, and also not everybody's the same. But in general, this desire to prevent pain from people is having unintended consequences.
So I should also add that besides just like ranting on this podcast, I do like to offer people solutions, right? So one of the solutions I would say is it's not just with it starts with the parent, but the parent only has they only have so much say after a certain place, right? And I would say, like, if you are a parent listening to this episode, it starts with you to role model what you want your kids, because kids actually learn better from role modeling than from talking to them. Don't be someone who quits. Finish things that you start. Don't allow and give in to every single emotional whim. Your job as a parent isn't to make your kid happy, it's to make them resilient over time. And this isn't just me talking. I am a parent, so I think I could be considered somewhat of an expert because I do it every day, but I actually read a ton about this, and I've had a lot of experts on this show. And that is honestly, from all the different experts I've had, they all agree on camera and off that we're in a crisis here because we are now doing worse as a generation, as a society than the generation before in terms of success, not just economic success, but personal success. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Just
yeah, and I would add to that also, like some of the things you can do is encourage your kid to play sports, because sports, there are a lot of great lessons in. Encourage your kid to play a musical instrument, because that's also, it takes discipline to achieve, takes time, takes patience, and teaching the kid.
And don't quit.
Yeah, and don't quit, right? Like sometimes you need to find the right sport or the right instrument. So there's a little bit of leeway you should have, but you gotta hold your kids' feet to the fire on that, and make sure they learn those lessons that unfortunately there are some people in some schools that are trying to take away those lessons in the effort for, again, protecting them for things that they don't frankly need protection for.
Absolutely. And also, I'll leave you with this. And if you are a parent, don't go to the job interview with your child. That's what I'll have to end it with. Please give us your thoughts and feedback. Always welcome. And thanks again, Lee, for being on the podcast.
Hey, my pleasure being here for your solo.
To be my foil. Yes. Bye.